For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. An article on CBS Sports was discussing the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had just won his second consecutive Most Valuable Player award, making this the 8th consecutive season that a foreign-born player has won the award. However, those 8 awards have only gone to 4 players: Giannis, Jokic, Joel Embiid, and SGA, who is Canadian-born. Prior to that, after a 3-year run by Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki, U.S.-born players won the award 11 straight times. The point of this article wasn't the fact that SGA won the award and wasn't born in America. The actual point of the article was the fact that it might be a while before another American-born player wins the award. The author of the piece seemed to feel that San Antonio Spurs star Victor Wembanyama might dominate the award throughout the entirety of his career, while holding off foreign-born contemporaries SGA and Luka Doncic, and the player who wasn't mentioned in the piece, 3-time winner Nikola Jokic, while asking the question of which U.S.-born players might have a chance to interrupt the current monopoly that foreign-born stars have on the Michael Jordan Trophy, which is the name that was given to the MVP award. While the author of the piece mentioned names like Anthony Edwards and Cade Cunningham as possible candidates, there was a tiny piece of information buried in the article that, though not the focal point of the piece, to me seemed to be the most important component of the entire article: the 65-game rule. Now, anyone who has followed the NBA, particularly the stuff that happens off the court and in the press, knows about the 65-game rule. In an attempt to counteract the load management problem that seems to be plaguing the league, the commissioner, in conjunction with the Players Association, enacted a rule that stipulates that in order for a player to be eligible for a max or supermax contract, players have to have won individual regular season awards. But in order to be eligible to win those awards, the players have to have appeared in at least 65 games for their team, logging at least 20 minutes in each game. Now, I'm not going to go into all the rules and exceptions to the rule because I've already covered that. And if you want to hear my take on that, there's a link to that episode at the top right corner of this screen if you're listening to this on YouTube. What I do want to talk about is a tiny piece of data that the author of the piece snuck into his article that, in my opinion, is the most important piece of information that should be included into any discussion of regular season awards, particularly the MVP award. The article stated that 569 players appeared in at least one game during the 2024-25 season, and of those 569 players, only 169 players appeared in at least 65 games. That means that the 400 other players in the league who appeared in at least one game didn't appear in at least 65 games. And this stat doesn't even address whether or not the 169 players who did appear in the minimum number of games also played at least 20 minutes in those games. The author then threw out 10-day contract and back-of-the-rotation guys, and was left with 271 players who started at least 10 games and only 140 who reached 65 games. He used this stat to indicate that Wemby might have trouble dominating future MVP races because he might have trouble reaching the 65-game threshold at his size each season. The real issue, as I've discussed in the past, is the fact that since, as the author stated, Wemby might not be able to achieve 65 games at his size, the true MVP of the NBA might not be chosen for several years. Luka Doncic legitimately appeared in 64 games this past season, but he also got a 2-game dispensation due to him missing 2 games because his wife was having a baby. If not for that, the leading scorer in the NBA and the leader of the Pacific Division champion Los Angeles Lakers would not have been eligible to appear on the ballot and finish in 4th place in the MVP voting. Wemby was 1 game short but got an exception. Anthony Edwards, who was the league's 3rd leading scorer and the leader of a playoff team, couldn't get any votes. Jokic reached 65 games. SGA hit 68. Cade Cunningham got to 64, and Kawhi Leonard hit 65. In fact, only 2 of the top 8 vote-getters played in at least 70 games, Donovan Mitchell at 70 and Jaylen Brown at 71. So, Before we start talking about whether or not Wemby will dominate the MVP award over the next 10 years, or if the Michael Jordan trophy will only go to foreign-born players for the foreseeable future, we need to consider if the real MVP will be chosen each year, because players have to decide how important the award is to their careers, to their egos, or to their team's success for a given season. If a player chooses his legacy over his team's success, playing in a few extra games in order to qualify for a regular season award might physically debilitate that player, which will hurt his team's chances of advancing through the playoffs. Some say that Luka should have taken more games off during the season so that he would have been in better shape for the playoffs. As it turned out, he played in enough games to qualify for the MVP award, the All-NBA teams, and a Supermax contract when his current deal expires. But he missed the playoffs entirely, and his team got swept in the second round by the team headed by the guy who actually won the MVP award. Did Luka choose legacy over his team's success? One never knows, do one? Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel, and visit the Eric J. on Sports website, and follow me on Facebook at Eric J. on Sports 1, and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J. on Sports. And for Eric J. on Sports, I'm Eric J., and this is what I think.